Hey, good afternoon. We're going to call our architect selection, I guess, work session to order. Eric, I'm going to ask you to, I guess, start the introductions and start the event.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Chairwoman. Chairwoman and fellow commissioners, thanks for having us here today. Thanks for taking the time on this very important project. As you know, we'll have two interviews today with the not selection committee, the qualification committee or whatever. Narrowed, there was 5 proposals, narrowed it down to 3 for them to have presentations, and they narrowed that down to 2. And those are the 2 you're going to have today. And the first one is Goodwin, Mills, and Kaywood. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Hillary Morgan, and I'm a Vice President of Justice with GMC, and we are extremely happy to be here today. We're going to introduce 2 other gentlemen in just a second. You will notice on your placemats that we placed in front of you, there is a 4th individual. That's Kevin Bond. You'll also see him in the presentation coming up. His wife is actually currently in the hospital with a very serious heart issue, and I told him without a doubt that's more important than anything else, and that's what we believe about relationships and teams. So just so you are aware, he did want to be here, but his wife's more important than anything right now. So we're going to get started, if that's okay. So again, this is our team. I am head of justice. Kevin maintains our design oversight. Of course, you know probably John Bass, who's going to be handling the civil engineering on this project. And I want to introduce in a second and allow him to talk about his firm. That's Kurt Bridges, who's our electrical engineer and heads the engineering portion of our projects. Kurt also grew up in Carroll County, so wanted that to be known. So who are we? Again, here's our org chart. The structural engineers on the project will be Martin and Martin with Adam Boswell, and then also Frank Needwich, who is the N in R&N Systems Design. Just so you know, R&N Systems Design is one of the most renowned security detention specialists in the world, in my opinion. They have done everything from small scale to they've also done ADX Max, which is the most maximum security facility in the nation. So I'm going to allow Kurt to speak quickly about Newcomb and Boyd.
All right, thank you. I don't think I'll need to switch slides. All right. Good afternoon, all. My name is Kurt Bridges, as Hillary said, with Newcomb and Boyd. At Newcomb and Boyd, our justice studio is made up of 6 teams. We have 4 teams that are multidisciplinary, so mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We have 1 that's dedicated for fire alarm, fire protection, and we have 1 that's dedicated for low voltage. The benefit of having this structure, it allows us to scale our teams within the studio to support project size, complexity, and subject matter. It also allows us to coordinate more efficiently because we have the individual consultants really focusing on one trade instead of trying to mix trades. Like, for example, mechanical and plumbing, we actually have them separated. And so what that does, it allows for the efficient coordination, and the example I like to use is Nick Schneider is our low voltage consultant. When Nick needs information on security electronics, all he does is reach out to R&N and Frank's team, and they talk the same language. So that information gets shared efficiently without being muddled. I do want to take a personal second to say that this project really is personal to me. I grew up in Carroll County. My parents and my brother's family still live in Bowden Junction. My cousins live in Carrollton. I take all projects seriously. All my projects are responsible for me, and of course I want them to be successful. But when I have something that supports my hometown, my family, it takes it up another level. I of course I live in the Atlanta area, but this is home, and to be part of a project like this is really important to me. I will say one thing that might make me a little more excited is a community project to bring back Western steer, but I'll save that one for another. I greatly appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm John Bass. We are here, part of the team, excited to be part of it, exciting for the opportunity to work on this project. I know you all know, we're always excited to work with y'all and for y'all. Y'all are here with us. We're all together in it. I want to see this thing successful in the end and the best product we can get, so I'm excited about it and excited to be part of their team.
Thank you, John. So thank you, John and Kurt. Our teams have worked together before. Just so you know, Kurt has actually worked with us for close to 20 years. So these teams are really brought together to make sure that we give the most beneficial project and understand that working relationship that we have. So talking about GMC specifically, we are a multidisciplinary firm, which means that in any point in the project we have an issue that arises, we have a specialty person that can help fix the issue. Everybody wants to assume that an issue won't happen on a project. I'm sorry to have to say that I will never lie to you and tell you that that isn't, and I'll tell you right now that it was not true. We're also local, okay? We have an area, we've been in Atlanta for over 14 years, but we do have 3 offices throughout the state and serve over 200 of our employees are within Georgia. Okay, our clicker did die. Sorry.
Yes,
Oh.
your battery's low, so try to get up, but you should be good.
Okay. Can y'all hear me from this one?
Yes.
Okay. We're flexible, okay? So I just want to talk about knowledge of site and local conditions, okay? So I'm based out of Montgomery, Alabama. Kevin Bond's based out of Birmingham, and that's just because of our locality. We're all over the place. Kevin's actually has, we're getting him a condo in Georgia to be able to help facilitate Georgia itself. And then, of course, Atlanta is 52 miles from y'all. We surround you, and that's key to why we picked this project as one that we wanted to work on, okay? We like to build relationships, and we'll talk about that in further detail in a second. But being able to closely serve you from a technical aspect of justice, but also the local aspect of our Georgia market is key to the way that GMC works and operates. So we do that with a collaborative approach, and we collaborate across all of our offices and our teams to make that happen. So let's talk about being experts real quick. As a justice expert, okay, we understand code. We understand ACA, which is the American Correctional Association's code and guidelines that a majority of people go under. And we also work with the federal government and have a lot of relationships with them in terms of the Department of Justice to make sure that the facility that we're designing is at the highest standards today. We also are key into working with things like correctional news and those so that we have articles a part of it. Many of you might know Merv Waldrop. He's the county commissioner for Burke County. We have worked with him, as you can see there. What he thinks helps with him the most is actually that technical expertise that we consider our superpower, adding that technical expertise with the local markets. So I want to talk about a couple of case studies really quick. The first one is the Alabama Department of Corrections. You're probably saying, why are we talking about Alabama and Georgia? It's about the relationship. Okay, in 2014, they hired us to start doing facility assessments throughout their entire state, which we did. In 2016, they gave us an open-end agreement. That open-end agreement has been extended 3 times under 3 separate contracts, with each of those separate contracts having year renewals within them. In addition, there's an ADA upgrades one that is specific to the Department of Justice oversight that is going on in the Alabama prison system right now. GMC leads that effort and works directly with the Department of Justice to ensure that they are maintained and under current compliance. We have a separate civil engineering and electrical engineering portion. We have a total of 170 projects that we have done with them. And how do we do that? We do that by creating these teams and making sure that the teams that we bring to the projects allow for concurrent projects to be maintained and schedules to be maintained through them. And as you can see here, with those crisis cells in ADA, there were 7 institutions that we divided amongst these 5 projects with a total net change order value of only 1%. Some of those actually had negative change orders associated with that at the end of the project. So the way we handle negative change orders and have such a low volume is the way we add allowances and contingencies into the projects and work with our contractors and work with the market sectors to maintain those numbers. So this is Tutwiler Prison for Women. It's in the news all the time. If y'all haven't heard about it, y'all can research it tonight. It'll give you some good reading before bed. But ultimately, it's the main prison in the state of Alabama doing women's facilities. We've completely renovated that facility, and under the Department of Justice oversight, are currently doing the remodels of that facility. So then Governor K. Ivey facility is currently a 4,000 bed facility being built in Elmore County. I want to read a quote to y'all. It's more than just a prison. It's a mental health facility and a medical facility in a prison, and not just a hospital, but a hospital where every room is secure. That is key, and that is what's very similar to the project y'all have. Okay, with y'all's additions to the women's, with y'all's additions talking about mental health, it's key to this that we understand how to do that, okay? So let's talk about the relationship. You can't do this case study and have this project without a relationship with them. And that's the relationship we want to build in Carroll County and start with this project. As you can see, Jenny Abbott, who's Director of Facility Maintenance for ADOC, just straight up said, professionalism, creative solutions, overall delivery of a project in great service. That is what we strive to provide. So another case study is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Division. This project started as a design-build project. The contractor was way over schedule, okay? The design was not working. They didn't feel like they were being listened to. They had done the original programming on the facility, and at the end of the day, they said it didn't work. They fired them and hired GMC with Jarvis. We saved them 6 months by accelerating the schedule, by creating a site work package and a structural package that outline that. And through that, we also provided a 30-year guaranteed maintenance plan, so the building will be 100% maintained over the next 30 years. So I want to point out that this was Kevin, and this is where Kevin was going to take over. But I want to read that quote from a part of it from Scott Gordon, who's with Cherokee County, Georgia, and some of y'all know him. And he just says, what sets GMC apart is their justice expert, Kevin Bond. He actively listens to our needs and leverages his expertise to align with our goals, an approach that is lacking in other firms. That is what we strive to provide. So a couple of other jails we've done is Pike County in Troy. Kevin worked directly on this. As you can see, we did the courthouse in the front, and then in the back of the facility was a brand new institution with women and everything else involved. The same thing with the Tuscaloosa County Jail, which had the same elements. So we were trying to show you projects that have all the same elements associated with this, which includes the medical and the mental health, the female facilities, as well as the male expansions, and also is associated with the police department. So it has all those key components that you're looking at. That. How do we think? We think about partnership, and we think from the very beginning. Our key step is engagement and listening. If that is not maintained throughout the course of a project, it will not work. So we have key parameters in place to make sure that that works. We confirm the program. We understand y'all paid Nelson to do a program. We respect that, okay? I want y'all to understand we respect it, we appreciate it. These leaves that you see here is how we think, okay? That's a piece of your program. But we can grow those into a bigger plant by nurturing them every day and building the roots back. That is what we're trying to do when we start a design of a project where we're already given a program. So we walk through your facility. We understand the current conditions of the facility. We saw those. This is some other images of where we've turned facilities into today. And how do we work on this? We work on it by using BIM modeling. We use Revit software. That Revit software allows for several things. QA/QC is one I'm going to talk about in a second. But it also allows us the ability to do mocks up in VR. So at all courses of the project, you can put on a head goggles and walk through the facility we're designing for you to physically feel like you're in the space. A lot of times people don't understand what an architect draws on paper and how what we are drawing on paper gets built into a three-dimensional model. So it allows your staff and you all to put on the goggles, walk through the facility and say, now I get where the doors are. I understand that the sight lines are okay, and make sure that it's a safe environment for all individuals. So QA/QC is a holistic approach. It starts with the BIM modeling. We have one model that all of our engineers work on at the exact same time. That means if I move a wall, Kurt's Electrical better move in that wall, and he can immediately see it day one. If we have a contractor on board early, they're given the model, so they also can actively look at it and start taking off cost estimates. It allows for rapid approaches to budget estimating and allows for any movement that we ever make on the drawings to be done simultaneously. So that's how we maintain budget. We start at the very beginning with the scope and the design and lead it all the way through construction, okay? We refine those at each point, but at all stages of the project, budgets and estimates will be talked about, and we'll work interchangeably throughout the course with CPS to ensure that that's actively maintained. So again, this is another graph because we find it important. The most important way to manage costs is at the very beginning, okay? So while y'all have done the program, it's taking that program, looking at it and saying, if I'm doing cells, okay, and I'm doing modules, like these modules, okay, 3D printed, these are 3D printed cells, and you're building cell modules, okay, these stack on top of each other. There's only a certain number of companies in the world that make these and do these, okay? It's having that relationship with those groups to understand the cost associated with them, and we work with them every day to make sure that the pieces and the parts that come together were responsive in the construction aspect when they build it, okay? Y'all, I am a pacer, so I'm kind of, this back and forth is kind of me. And Sunday gave me a heads up because she knows I pace. So talking about schedule again, pre-design and concept, it usually takes time, okay? It can take 2 months, it can take a month, it can take, sometimes I walk in and somebody says, nope, this is what I want, and we're good. But either way, we look at that to make sure that it's maintained. It's a key aspect of any project. And here was an example of a CMAR schedule that we had in place also. Of course, any of these dates can shift and move, but the key is getting the schedule on the front end, and we guarantee you that we will meet those dates. And we do that by we create internally a much bigger task list, okay? Those task lists also are engaged with people's names and dates so that they know when they're meeting something and they're held accountable. So Kurt will laugh because I will hold him accountable and he holds me accountable as well, and John will do the same thing to make sure that our dates are met. So, construction administration, we have local office support, but it's also dedicated support from our teams. We will be there, okay, at the job site a minimum of every week, okay? That's minimum of every week. Myself will be at your job site a minimum of every other week, okay, to ensure that the site and what's being built is important. When you have key pours, okay, the concrete slab on an area is a key pour. Our individual will be there. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. in the morning, or if it's 10 o'clock at night, or if it's in the pouring rain, which they better not be pouring a slab in the pouring rain, but the point is still the same. We will be there and be actively engaged at all aspects of construction, okay? With that, we submit field reports to you. You get weekly field reports to understand the quality and insurance related around it. So why GMC? I think we've talked about a lot of it, but the key importance were these 3 questions your team asked us, which was schedule and how we maintained it, okay? Y'all's budget, which I want to just state, I'm not concerned about your budget. I've looked at it a million times, okay? I know some people might be. It doesn't scare me, okay? If I felt like it scared me, I tell you, we can meet it. And then the third thing is our experience with Georgia Jail Design. We are actively engaged when working on other projects, but we have not completed a jail in Georgia. And I know that may be a concern to y'all, but I want to combat it right now, okay? The reason we picked this project as being one we were chasing is because of the location of it and the ability to build the relationship. You need the technical expertise on this project to make it successful. And I will not chase a project where I do not feel we can provide that level of service. And that is why we have not stretched into the Georgia market until recently. So I want to make sure that y'all understand that and understand that you're getting 100% of my time commitment that y'all would need to make this successful. Okay, so this team is built on trust. We operate with a shared purpose by communicating, collaborating, engaging, and remaining humble with honest candor.
Hillary,
Okay?
you're at the 2-minute warning.
Okay, and you are our highest priority, and we will be aligned with you in tandem to provide the greatest level of service based on integrity, humility, and stewardship. We're done. Can we answer any questions for
I
you?
think she's got, what, 30 seconds to
She's
spare?
got 1 minute and 44 seconds.
I talk fast, too.
It's okay, that's good, that's good. Okay, so commissioners, we have about 30 minutes for questions. So I'll remind you, like I do during planning and zoning, to be respectful of the other commissioners and don't take the whole 30 minutes each. But so I'll just open the floor to see if there's someone that wants to start the questioning.
Hillary, thank you for being here today. I've got several questions, and to the chairman's point, if you could just answer it as quickly as you can. I don't need a long elaboration. I'm just kind of wanting to get your train of thought on the process. So you understand that this is a CM at risk project when we hire the general contractor. Can you tell me what that means to you and your firm in connection to that?
In my opinion, a CM, okay, and we work with them constantly, a CM at risk, is we work with them interchangeably. So basically, y'all bring them on, right? And we immediately get them engaged with our design so that those are collaborative and brought together. So we'll work with them from the design all the way through construction to make sure that they can properly cost the project throughout each portion and each phase of the design aspect. And then also during construction, make sure that what we have designed is properly entailed. So we treat them very much as a team and as a partner, and not just as their own firm.
And I would add in addition to that, and I want to see if you agree, short of a plane crashing into the site or soil testing issues or an owner-initiated change, anything else would be a resolution that comes up between you and the general contractor that would not involve change orders for the owners. Is that correct? Through the CM risk project?
Unless it is project betterment in terms of a project betterment aspect where y'all have brought something up, as you just stated, okay? No, we work with the contractor.
But to cut to the chase, if you make a mistake or the general contractor makes a mistake and you all have got to work together, that is what you're working through, not passing on those costs on something that's professionally at fault or professionally you run into an entanglement on your end.
100%.
Thank you.
100%.
Can you give me an example very quickly of where your firm has made a mistake, whether it be a minor mistake or a major mistake, and give me an example of how you've caught that and how you worked through the project to fix it on another project?
Okay, so there's another project right now with the pardons and parole facility where the owner brought in and we started the design. We had the topo and the survey done. The site was surveyed. During the design process, the owner came in and put a pole. They wanted to do training on a pole. So Alabama Power actually placed a pole out on the site, okay? Alabama Power sent us the location of the pole, but it was after the bid documents were already released, okay? And that's when we were made aware of it. What we ended up doing is instead of forcing or having a conversation that's basically said, hey, y'all added a pole after the survey, we actually worked with them and mitigated 100% of the cost by rerouting all of the civil and regrading the entire site with a new grading plan to make sure that the pole no longer was an obstacle in the way.
Okay. Can you give me an idea of what your communication matrix looks like? And so what I'm specifically talking about is throughout this entire process, you're going to have phone calls, you're going to have emails, you're going to have RFIs, you're going to have, I'm assuming, a call tag system where you're logging those RFIs. One thing that I've seen project after project after project, when you have good ones and when you have bad ones, is people that they might respond in 72 hours, others might respond in 24 hours, and in 48 hours they say they're going to have an answer, and in 48 hours they don't have an answer, and in 72 they've got the next level that they're going through. So walk me through, what does your matrix look like? Not, hey, we're going to respond and be timely, but give me the internal organization as quickly as you can of how communication will be effective throughout the entire process.
We have a live action log with everybody's name attached to it, and that includes our consultants, such as Kurt, and Kurt can probably speak to this a little bit more, but basically what it does is the minute somebody states something or has a conversation, that item is added onto the list with a date, a time, and when that item's going to be taken care of, okay? That holds everybody accountable, also with the name of the individual that's responsible for making sure that that action happens. There's a note column associated with that for him to place any notes that he has. So for instance, if he has to coordinate with Frank, he's going to have that in there. If he has to coordinate with myself, he's going to have that listed in there. So all of those notes are engaged, and they bring up the top items of when those items are next due. So we look at those weekly to ensure, in our weekly meetings, to ensure any item that week is basically taken care of. And if it's not taken care of, there's an immediate action to make sure that it's resolved.
Okay. And I'll yield back my time after this last question. You do understand, obviously, that we have a professional owner's rep, and I wouldn't ask you to commit to anything outside of what your contract is going to say, but you do understand about the hierarchy, and that if we have an owner's rep, that they're here to represent specifically our interests, not that you're not, but we're going to run into stuff any project would where you're going to have disagreements or you're going to have situations where you've got to work through something. So just making sure you understand the professional hierarchy of why we went the extra step to hire a professional owner's rep.
100% understand that. We have a good working relationship with CPS.
Thank you.
Along that lines, have you done projects with them before?
I am currently actually working on a couple of projects with CPS, including I was speaking to Jalen just a minute ago about another project, so yes.
Is it in Georgia or is it in Alabama? Or
It's in Georgia.
Georgia, okay. How many projects have you, I know you said y'all just moving into the market, but have you been into the market? How many projects have you done here?
So Atlanta's been in the market, our Atlanta and Georgia firms have been in the market, or Georgia offices have been in the market for over 14 years. We've done hundreds of projects in the state of Georgia, so we completely understand Georgia and the local authorities and the standards and so forth. In terms of what I personally have done, I have done a project with the Georgia Department of Corrections across the board, and I'm actively engaged with them on a locking controls project with this exact same team, minus John. No offense, it doesn't need civil. And then we are working on several others with the juvenile justice. We have several jail projects also going on that are in their programming stage, as well as some courthouse projects that are currently in the design stages as well.
Okay. And you said you'd be on site at least every other week and you'd have somebody making visits once a week, is that correct?
Minimum,
Would
at
be-
minimum.
Is that something that's going to be kind of local or they'll be coming in from out of town? I mean, I just want to know if you run into an issue, how quick can they be available for them?
Tony is local. He actually lives halfway between here and Atlanta. So he's local and can be here in a heartbeat. Also, we have an entire CA department that's underneath of myself, specifically that if at any point in time any of our jail or correctional projects has an issue, they will immediately be over there, and they actually live in Auburn, in Montgomery, and Birmingham, so they can be here immediately as well. We have a minimum, like, you will hear from us immediately, but I will tell you, we will be boots on the ground within 12 to 24 hours, depending on the problem, if you have an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think what we're doing here is a little unique in that it's a mental health facility, a women's jail, and then offices. So, and I guess what I'm looking at, have you done something like this in a county close to our size? We got about 25,000 people.
Yes, sir. So that Tuscaloosa and that Troy are two examples of that, that we have done the exact same kind of thing associated with it. And then we have several other projects that we can mention that we have done the women's facilities or do office and PD stations or so forth that are independent. But bringing these together is the same thing. You look at each component and each piece and you design it specific for what those needs are, okay? And we make sure that that happens.
Okay, and I noticed, all right, the graph you showed that I guess it was where you came in, the bottom line, 1% above and some of them were 5% below. Could you go into a little bit more detail? We got people listening and they're interested in money. So
Yeah, we can explain. So there is a couple, I'm going to flip back.
yeah.
Okay, can't flip back to that slide.
Well, that's okay.
Jeremy.
But what you will see related around that is that project was done with the Department of Justice oversight, okay? It was divided up amongst 7 institutions across the board. And so what we did is they were piecemeal. They were small pieces that basically got added together. And so on one project, we had, I know, a deduct of 2% of the change order volume at the end. Another one was, again, -5. A couple of them were over. And the ones that were over, and I can talk specifically about every single change order related around all those projects, but the ones that were over tended to be unforeseen conditions as a result of building in a renovated area, okay?
Again, I didn't understand you. One more time.
So the numbers that were over, the change orders that tended to be over, were a result of unforeseen conditions, okay? So for instance, one of them was we had to take out and do the ADA bathroom next to the mental health crisis cell to place in that cell anti-ligature fixtures. But when we dug into the concrete underneath of it, the location of all of those conduits basically looked like spaghetti. That, of course, is going to be a result of a change order. That change order is an unforeseen condition that no contractor or architect would have ever seen. There's no way to find that or recognize it. So with that noted, that's why you had some positive change orders, and then you have some that are a deductive change order. The ones that are deductive are due to the fact that we add contingency allowances to every project. Those contingency allowances allow for flexibility for the owner, and also allow for protections in those instances where you might not know something's happening. If we sit there and we look at soils, hey, we can do soil testing ahead of time with geotech, we definitely will. But you might find that those soils, when you get into one little tiny spot, because you don't bore every single spot, okay? You might get into one area with loose soil that you didn't see. So we always add a contingency allowance for loose soils to make sure that that's happened. So at the end of the job, our hope is that we can always give you back money, okay?
That's the one we're looking for right there.
Yeah. It helps with contingencies, and that's the key.
So I'm going to almost ask the same question, so forgive me on that, because you asked something I already kind of had on my list, and you just went over something. So I want to clarify contingency. So I'm used to the county will have a contingency that in my mind is if we change something. I have learned that's not really the way the industry works. So I guess my question to you was, your errors and omissions, how many have you had in the last maybe 2 jobs, or how do you deal with things that are architect related more so than the county just saying, we've changed our mind, we want to make this room bigger? I consider that something that's our contingency. How do you handle the architect errors and omissions?
Okay, so a majority, we actually have an extremely low errors and omissions list, okay? Extremely low. I think it's like less than 0.5% over our company, okay? So, and across that, the way we handle it is we minimize errors and omissions by working with the contractor from day one, okay? We also do it by doing extensive testing. If I'm sitting there and I know that I'm going to do a lot of plumbing with existing pipes, we're going to test and look at those pipes ahead of time and scope those pipes and camera them to see where we're at. Okay, some things happen. An error and omission on our part, we handle. Okay, I'm 100% honest. I'll come straight to you and say I have an error and omission related around this, and we're taking care of it. So you're aware of it, okay? But we also work with the contractor to try to mitigate that. So if I can mitigate it by looking at something else and say, hey, if we can make this move, then that's great. And I'll come to y'all and say, I think we can make this move or make this shift, and it's a no-cost change. Is that acceptable? So those are the ways that we kind of look at it across the board.
Okay, great. I'll ask one more question, and then I think I'm done. So a succession plan. So sometimes we've had people come before us, and then the project gets started, and those people are no longer on the project, because it's human nature for us to choose based on personalities today, how we bonded and things like that, and all of a sudden, before you know it's another person that's now doing the work. So I'm just curious, do you have other people in line right behind you? Let's just say for some reason you got offered some fantastic job. Will I also know the second person? And will the sheriff's office, the ones of us that will be working closely with the project, will we know your second person so that if you're not around or is all of a sudden not a new face, we're like, who is that person, or where did the one go that we like the most?
So the second person for us is actually Kevin Bond, okay? So if I were to leave, you have Kevin Bond in place. If Kevin were to leave, then you have myself, okay? If both of us leave, which, trust me, based on our age and what our plans are, it's not happening. If that is the case, then we also have several other individuals in place, but we also, Kevin and I respect our clients and respect you all to make sure that we have, if we see that coming, that y'all are introduced to that individual way ahead of time and they're brought in.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Ben?
Could you kind of break down your scheduling, just for layman terms for the public? What are y'all looking like scheduling wise for the whole project?
When you ask about scheduling, are you asking about our people, or are you asking about how we are breaking down the timeframes under Seymour?
Timeframes, like the total project timeframes.
Okay, so the total project timeframes, I don't have it out in front of me right here, okay? But the way that we usually just layman's terms, break it down is we start with the programming. I usually want about 2 months for that because to me, that is key. That is key of making sure that whatever we're designing in the project scope is signed off on and y'all are in agreement because that's where money shifts. That's where the biggest shift in money comes, okay? Then we start schematic design. When you start schematic, you're really looking at the layout of the floors and the walls and the doors, okay? That's what I tell everybody. When they sign off on schematics, you're signing off on doors and walls, okay? And then we go into the design development stage or the preliminary stage. It's called a bunch of different things by everybody else, but basically during that stage, it's determining location of outlets, location of ceiling grills, location of those items, okay? Making sure that all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment fit into the facility and are the pieces that you want. So if you have key equipment like generators and those aspects that you want associated with that, it's understanding those power requirements and making sure that that's taken into place. We do that during the preliminary stage. And so then the final stage of CDs is really just getting down to the nuts and the bolts of the details. How does the connection between the wall and the roof attach, okay? And that's where we really dig in very deeply with the contractor to make sure that it's the easiest way for them to build the building and the quickest way for them to build the building. And so, but again, with CMAR, we start at the very beginning. So you start with the contractor and whoever you have on board day one, and they'll get the schematic drawings, they'll get the DD drawings, and they'll be working with us. So if they see something that's a power requirement issue or they see something like that, they can immediately tell me that it's an issue, and we can change that detail and work through it throughout the course of the entire project. Did that help answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Got one more question. You brought up that program you're using that you saying everybody can see. So is there most contractors that use that same program, or is it specific contractors you prefer to use that program where you can see all of it? If you move a wall, the electrical, the plumbing, all goes in it?
So that program that I'm talking about is one that's internal, but I've never had a contractor have an issue with it, okay? We built it ourselves. We've never had an issue. A lot of times what we use with contractors is they like Procore. There's other forms of communication, and we upload it directly to Procore so that it's a system that they're used to using and immediately does it. I'm using Procore as an example, but there's hundreds of programs out there that do the exact same thing and allow for flexibility and coordination among all trades.
Okay. I know some contractors that have actually worked with you, and they say it's been very successful and very thorough.
Well, I appreciate that.
My final question would be is if you were able to sit in one of our seats and retain the knowledge that you have right now, what is the number one attribute that you would be looking for, and why do you think that your firm is the only one that has it or is superior in that attribute of why we should hire you?
I'll tell you, it's the relationships and the communication. That's the biggest way you fail a project is the communication. Somebody not rapidly responding. You need somebody to you need to be able to pick up the phone and know that that person's going to answer. And that's what I feel like our team does. I'll tell you, Jenny Abbott, she laughs, but she calls me every night, okay, about 9:30 p.m. or first thing in the morning at 5 a.m. And it's just, we know that that's how it works. And so we pick up the phone and we're there. And the key to that is understanding, I want you to feel comfortable and know that if you have an emergency, we're going to handle it, okay? And I also don't want you to know about the emergencies, right? If there's an issue between the contractor and us with the documents, it's our job to work that out. That's not y'all's job to have to fight through that. So we try to handle things without y'all even knowing, and we bring it to your attention too so that you're aware of it because we agree with transparency. And I think that a lot of firms lose the transparency. So we want to be transparent from day one, and we want to communicate and build that relationship.
We will have access to the PowerPoint, correct? Because I was going to say, it would be time, if we could have time to read it a little bit longer. I just want to confirm we will have that. 'Cause Steve, I know you wanted to see that one page that it's wonderful things about being in a 100-year-old building.
Well, Tutwiler Prison for Women is over 100 years old, okay? It's actually the second oldest. They closed the first oldest, but facility in Alabama, and it houses all the women. And we're so used to working in that facility. It's a daily occurrence, but it is hard. It's hard working in facilities that are old, but it's also understanding that they have good bones, and it's understanding how to work in facilities like that and make the best of the renovations that you can do. So it's how to tie those systems together, and I think that's what this team does well.
Thank you.
Hey, if y'all don't have any more questions, since we still have a little bit of time, I don't know, not putting anybody else on the spot with the team, but if there's anything that Hillary left off or anyone that wants to speak up.
We will tell you really quickly, I will. We brought biscuits, and if y'all are wondering, y'all are welcome to a biscuit, and here's the reason why. Sunday will tell you, when we came to the evaluation committee, we were the first, and they went, "We're hungry, and we want biscuits. Did y'all not bring biscuits?" And I said, "Well, I tried to do donuts, and it didn't work." And they laughed and they said, "Don't ever come back to Carroll County without a biscuit." So we brought y'all biscuits. We listen, okay? So I want y'all to know we listen. And I will never walk back into Carroll County without a biscuit, so.
And you realize that was a test to see if you was listening.
Well, we listen. That is one thing I will say, we listen. And so we have biscuits, we're gonna leave them here with y'all, so you can eat them now, later, you know, take them home and say, "Hey, wife, here we go," or husband, "Here's your biscuit," but there you go.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if I could.
Please.
I don't want to interrupt any other questions, but I mentioned that our Justice Studio, that's the studio that will be doing this project. We actually have healthcare and higher ed. We have civic. We have airport work. We are very well diversified. The reason that I'm saying that is in a facility like this where you have a healthcare component, we actually have an entire studio that helps us support it. Now, as far as being involved day to day, that's me or my APM. I don't hand it off to the healthcare studio and say, "Do this." We stay with the project. My studio owns the project, and then as we scale our workforce as needed, so we have an electrical engineer on my team. We may use a senior engineer of another team, depending on what the task is or the complexity of it. Or we may go to our technical studio, which is still another studio, and actually work through with them because they may be a subject matter expert on that. One other thing is we also have a QA/QC studio. Our technical studio covers the bulk of our QA/QC, so we're not relying on our individual team members to do the formal QA/QC. Obviously, QC is important. Hilly touched on that, but we have a technical studio that does the formal side of that at each one of the project phases. Okay.
Okay, well, hearing no other further questions or discussion, we have, I guess, just a few minutes left. We'll go ahead and close this session, I guess, for lack of a better, this is not out of my realm for my regular terminology.
Yeah.
I need a biscuit. So what we'll do is Joel will pause at this point, this part of the meeting, and then we'll turn it back on when the next group comes in. Does that work for you? Okay, great. So we'll officially kind of close. Okay, Eric, you're ready? Okay, so let me make sure Joel's got us ready. You ready? Okay, we'll begin the second part of our presentation from Nelson Architects. So Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is our second of two. I was remiss on the last one. We'll have a 20-minute presentation. We'll have a 2-minute warning for y'all, and then afterwards there'll be a 30-minute Q&A. And this is Nelson Worldwide. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon on this wonderful rainy day. So, I'm Karen Sickner. I am Nelson's studio director for our Justice and Civic group. And I just wanted to start by thanking you. I mean, this is a great opportunity. We have loved working with you on the study, and we're happy to have the opportunity to possibly proceed further. I'll be your design leader and will be your principal point of contact all the way through the life of the project from beginning to end. And today our presentation is going to be based on a theme that we hold dear to our heart. It's design that unlocks value for Carroll County. And basically, we feel that a lot of people can say that design unlocks value. We live and breathe this message every day. This is how we're built. This is how we deliver projects. And it's your money, and we're here to help you spend it, but in a very cost-effective and efficient way. So our presentation today is in 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is understanding the responsibility that you have to your constituents and our responsibility to you. And then Chapter 2, supporting wellness through design. We'll talk a little bit about that, particularly as it pertains to mental health and the women's unit. And then Chapter 3 is making the project easier to deliver, because in the end, design and pretty pictures, are one thing. We still have to deliver a project that's, constructed well and meets your needs. So today, you can see my team here, and I'm going to let them all introduce themselves, rather than take up time. The only thing I'm going to highlight is John Bass is here from Georgia and West. I think you already heard from him today, and I know he's done a lot of work with the county and also helped with the study. And then Alan is here with Conway and Owen, and Conway and Owen also helped with the study that we did, and they helped evaluate the existing jail. So they're one of the premier engineering firms in Georgia that do criminal justice work, and they do most of our jails with us. So with that, I'm going to start with, understanding responsibility. And this is important to us. Next slide, please. Because we understand our responsibility to you and that you ultimately have to your constituents. This is a big project. It's a complex project. Jails are never easy, right? Because some of your constituents want them, some of them don't. So we think we have to do it in the most cost-effective and transparent way possible. And, we're here to help you. We understand how hard this really is. But we kind of thrive on that. We all in this room kind of love this building type. This is what we do. This is all we do. And the other part of that is, we also understand the human reality. And by that I mean, Sheriff's Office has a bunch of staff that work in it every single day. And, the inmates that are in there, they still are members of the community. Some of them not so upstanding, right? But they're still part of your community. So we would like to, we like to try and focus on design and how that actually helps the Sheriff's Office do a better job. And then our experience in Georgia is pretty significant. We do a lot of work in the southeast and then scattered all around the country, but most of our work in Georgia is prisons and jails, and we probably have the most experience in Georgia in detention and corrections work than any other firm. And then public accountability, we understand your role a little bit. I'm not sure I could do your job, but I am very well aware that you guys sit in a fishbowl, and we're willing to climb in there with you temporarily and help you kind of navigate how you have to interact with the public and talk about this project. And sometimes we'll set up websites. I'm not sure what CPS has planned, but I know we've done that before. We've worked with Eric on a number of projects like this. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we want to talk about is the budget and the schedule. And so one of the reasons that we have titled this slide Early Design Criteria is because we have learned that it's really important for us to set the criteria early, because if we don't, then things get VE'd out and you end up making compromises where you really don't want to. So if there's something that the county or the sheriff's office really, really wants, we might get the top of the priority list, and we try and make sure that that doesn't get cut all the way through. So you end up with a shopping list. And so when we say early design criteria, that's sitting down with you and working out the budget, short-term and long-term. We don't want to make short-term decisions and then worry about, well, oops, there's another staff position here, and it's going to cost you an infinite amount of money to fund that additional staff, or make short-sighted durability life cycle costs and have really cheap HVAC systems that you're going to spend either lots of energy for or lots of maintenance on. I mean, there's all sorts of those parameters that we will build into all of our meetings. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is security, because it's probably the most important thing to the sheriff's office. Is there's some technology there that you probably don't want to compromise on, no matter what, because it's important. If it doesn't work, your jail's not secure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl, and Cheryl's going to talk a little bit about, she's our interior designer. She's going to talk a little bit about wellness and how it applies to a detention center.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everybody, again, for the opportunity. I'm Cheryl. My role is to support the team with my extensive design experience in behavioral and mental health. I sit in both practices for civic and justice as well as healthcare and support both teams. I implement a holistic design approach. I include evidence-based design research, trauma-informed design, and human-centric design, because we know in the detention environment that mental health and wellness is not an exception. It is part of the day-to-day reality of everybody that inhabits that building. Next slide, please. So one thing I love about this slide, I should say love may not be the right word, but there's clearly one image that is more compelling than the other. And I'm going to step for a minute over to healthcare. And I'm sure we've all been in a hospital room before or visited someone in a hospital room. And in every hospital room you have visited, there is a window. And there is a reason. It is now part of the requirement for healthcare design. And what we have learned from that research is that access to natural light and nature has been proven to reduce stress. It has been proven to reduce perception of pain. And in healthcare, it has actually been proven to reduce stay. So you might say, what does that have to do with us? Well, a lot, because we know that when your body is regulated by having access to that natural light, we are less anxious, we are less stressed. And what that equals to is less violence, right? So that makes it easier for the staff to provide better supervision. It makes it easier for more consistent operations. And then that equals less staff burnout. Next slide, please. One of the other things we know about detention is that people are already coming through your door experiencing trauma, perhaps suffering from addiction, going through crisis, and we know that jails sometimes become cleaning houses for the mentally ill. And to make a first step in establishing the treatment program, we have 3 things that we know we can do. 1 is the intake and assessment, 2 is our stabilization and treatment, and 3 is the trial readiness. And we're going to address adequate space for screening, clear sight lines, and ease of navigation. Knowing what the sequence is also helps to reduce our anxiety in any situation, and that goes for everybody, but especially in a situation that is already stress-inducing. Then we look at stabilization and treatment. So our housing units will be designed with intention to help the sheriff's office, because we know that even the smallest trigger can quickly spiral out of control and then become contagious to other people. So what we like to do, and you can see, especially in that top image, access to the mental health staff, again, clear sight lines. Acoustics are very, very important, especially for triggers. And of course, natural light, as I mentioned before. These are all seen as a means to de-escalation, again, reduce burnout, and really, at the end of the day, leaving space for a sense of safety and trust in this environment. And I do want to point out that the top image that you're seeing is a day room, and it does clearly provide a lot of natural light, access to nature, but we've also saved some dollars by having all the systems exposed at a very high ceiling, so they can't be touched or reached. And then if you look north through that image, that is the direct view from control for the behavioral health staff. The bottom image we're looking at, again, we're looking at that partial height wall that allows for clear sight lines, and that happens to be in a women's detention facility, and that is an area, because we know a lot of these women have children that will become visiting, and that becomes an area that kind of normalizes and humanizes that visit a little bit. Trial readiness is also an incredible, important part of what you guys do, and we recognize that. We recognize that the space programming from pre-trial, detention protocol, to follow-through once released, regardless of if it's back into the system or into society, is incredibly important. And we want to work with you to set everybody up for success and certainly due process. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is staff, which is certainly not least, but it is last in this slide group. But the well-being of your staff is incredibly important. Again, they are coming day in and day out into this environment alongside with the inmates, providing them a space that is distinctly and uniquely theirs. When they go in, it's their respite. They can go and have a meal. They can simply just go and take a deep breath. And that goes a really long way. It reduces stress for them, but it also can be a means to create a sense of community between the staff themselves. And it makes it a place where people want to come to work. They feel cared for, taken care of, and it provides a safe and secure space for them as well. So the last slide, and I really do love this diagram because it really emphasizes how much environment, behavior, and operations overlap. They are not mutually exclusive. We've all been inside places where we may not know why, but we've stepped inside and we feel like we can take that deep breath. And that affects everything in that building. So mental health is not only an operational and program consideration, but it can be a huge part of the design, and it should be a part of the design from beginning to end. So with that, beginning to end, I'm going to turn it over to Terrence, and he's going to talk about how we get from start to finish in the project. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Terrence Charles Whit Nelson, and I would be the project manager. And I'm going to talk about how we are going to make this easy to deliver. Next slide. And I'm going to start with the design and construction schedule and just highlight a couple of aspects about it. We are proposing starting the design in the beginning of April, and our first major milestone is going to be our guaranteed maximum pricing set, and that's going to occur in September. And that set is going to be used for the construction manager to provide the county with their guaranteed maximum price. It's an aggressive schedule. We have 165 days. But it is something that we've done in the past, so aggressive schedule is nothing strange to us. We are a large design firm, and we definitely have the resource capacity to do that. So beyond the GMP set, we will be finishing up the drawings throughout. We won't be complete at that point, but we do plan to be complete by December of this year. Also on the schedule, we've highlighted some early packages, early release packages, and those are packages where we just have to accelerate the design components so the construction manager can get a jump on things. After procurement and permitting, we are proposing an 18-month construction schedule. So we are proposing the construction start April of 2027 and be complete by the fall of 2028. Next slide. And wanted to touch on about making the right decisions early. We are going to have our initial conversations are going to be critical for this project. We really need to have the dialogue with the county, the sheriff's department, and talk about the needs and the priorities and make decisions based upon those. And I'll give an example. We were involved in the early preliminary phases, and we had the opportunity to walk the jail. One of the things we learned is that the jail is using what we call standard locks, and you could see that in that upper left image. We are familiar with this lock, just being that we do a lot of jail and prison renovations. We know this lock is problematic because inmates are able to manipulate them and defeat them, and then they're opening the doors to their cells. So we had the opportunity, working with Georgia Department of Corrections to do the research. We talked to several lock manufacturers, and what we might want to talk about as a group is this lock on the top right. It's called a wedge lock. It's a lock that can be retrofitted onto the new jail, the men's tower. It can also be installed new on the women's addition. But this is just an example of the dialect that we would need to have because they definitely have dollar amounts attached to them.
So I'll step in here briefly. My name's Alan Sasser. I'm an electrical engineer, and I'll be the primary point of contact for Conway and Owen. We are the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers on the team. Just wanted to speak to the photos on the bottom half of the screen here. What you see on the bottom left is the existing plumbing chase in the jail. The issue with these chases is access. To get to these, you actually have to enter the housing unit. The doors to these are located in the day room. So for the new facility, we would propose something more like the bottom right photo. It's a long linear plumbing chase that has a secure access from outside the housing unit. You never have to enter the housing unit to perform maintenance or respond to any sort of issues that are ongoing. So just another example of an early design decision that will help eliminate costly changes to the design later in the process. Thanks, guys.
And this would be a discussion for the women's edition. We would look at these back-to-back cell configurations with that chase running down the middle. I'd like to also mention having the CMR involved during this process is going to be crucial because then we could start to budget and put dollar amounts to the decisions we make. And to talk about our construction manager at risk experience. Here at Nelson, the majority of our projects are construction manager delivered. We've worked with all the national construction managers doing justice projects around, and all the companies that you see listed on there on the slide, we've done work with here in Georgia. And ideally for this project, again, we would like to get that construction manager on board early because of the collaboration. And we're not talking, we design, they go price. We redesign, they go price. No, we want them fully engaged. We want to be able to bounce ideas off of each other. We know that it helps the design team because we're putting together an efficient and effective drawing package for them to build from. And then we're also getting, real-time pricing information from that. So we think it would be an ideal thing to definitely get them involved in the beginning. Truthfully...
Excuse me. 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Oh, okay. We all need to work, the county, the construction manager, the design team. We are going to be a three-legged stool throughout this whole design and construction process. And I'll cut it short after that and introduce John.
Hey, my name's John Bass. I'm excited to be on the team. Site work and utilities is going to be my fun game. It's going to be a fun project, so because of time, I'm going to pass it on.
And actually, so actually, the last thing I want to talk about is just a little bit about phasing, and I'm going to do that later at the end since I think we're out of time, and we'll just stop right here.
We have 45 seconds.
I have 45 seconds. Okay. Well, John. So one of the things that we've noticed when we did the study, and John helped with the study, was all the site utilities and the grading. And you can talk about that because I'm going to do the other things.
Yeah, okay. Since she's going to give me a little more time, I'll talk a little bit about it. But obviously, being an existing site, there's going to be a lot of challenges with existing utilities. Those are going to be critical to the project. We're going to need to identify those early on, go ahead and coordinate with utility companies so we got a good idea about relocation plans. We don't want that to cause us delays with construction. So that'll be critical for us, also identifying constraints that those may have.
Time.
And that's the time.
That's fine.
Is that all right?
That's great. So at this point, we'd like to turn it over for questions and answers.
Commissioner Chance, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you for being here today and for taking the time to submit a proposal. I've got several questions, and for the sake of time, if you can just kind of rapidly answer them as quickly as you can. You touched briefly on the CM at risk and the working platform. I really like that in your slide. My question to you from the liability standpoint is for you to recognize, or do you recognize that the CM at risk project, outside of a plane crashing on the site or soil issues or an owner initiated change, you understand if there's errors or if there's problems or if there's something that the construction company or you yourself as the design company may have done something wrong, that is for you all to work out and not to pass along that change order to the owners. Would that be a fair assessment?
You have as part of the RFP, you issued the standard AII contract, and the strategy for that is basically what you said is basically correct.
Okay, thank you.
There are exceptions, but it's basically correct.
Sure, generally speaking.
Right.
Thank you. Can you give me an example, whether it's been a minor issue or a major issue or error that your firm has encountered that maybe was your fault, that you've had to quickly correct and try to work through? And I'm not, here again, not a long elaboration, but just something that you've recognized you had a problem, what you did to recognize it and how you fixed it.
Yeah, no, and we're first to admit, we do the best we can do, but we aren't perfect. So we had a project, you have one of the images up there from our South Carolina project, the Psychological Residential Treatment Center, where we showed it's funny, Sunday was asking us about toilet accessories earlier, but we had showed them in a wrong location and the sinks were off a little bit. Sinks being off was the contractor's issue because he put it in the wrong spot, but the toilet accessory locations were all wrong, and I know that sounds minor until you multiply it like 10 times. So we quickly worked with the contractor, got it fixed, got it redone, and it worked.
Okay. Give me an idea of what your communication matrix looks like. And where I'm going with this, you're going to get RFIs. I'm assuming you'll have a tag system for that internally. You're going to get emails. You're going to get phone calls. You're going to get text. And I'm not looking for an answer that says over on top of it. I'm looking for an internal process that you can say, from day one until the project ends, this is what communication means to us, and this is what we have in place to ensure that we're spitting out timely information as request or just general communication goes about.
Okay. We have a software called Newforma, and Newforma is basically a large database, and it allows us to track to-do lists, meeting minutes, RFIs, any piece of correspondence, any email that goes out, anything we send to you or the contractor or Eric and his team, we know where it went, who's got it, who opened it, who didn't open it, that should have maybe opened it, all that kind of stuff. So Newforma is our kind of go-to software. Is that what you were looking for?
Okay. As far as the project, you understand that we have hired a professional owner's rep to kind of help the county in the sheriff's office of the sheriff to overlook this project. So not asking you to commit to anything outside of the scope of your what your contract would be, but understanding the hierarchy, you do understand the county spent considerable funds to hire that professional owner's rep. And if there's an issue that's going on, they need to take the lead, you would respect that hierarchy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've worked together on numerous projects.
Okay. And my final...
With both of these two.
Okay, my final question, I'll go ahead and get out of the way, is if you were sitting in my seat with your knowledge and another firm was up and you were having to ask the one single question, what's the number one attribute that you bring to the project of why we should hire your firm over anyone else, what would you say?
That's funny you should say that. Our ability to be creative and think outside the box, because what that brings you is a lot of creativity in solving problems in a very cost-effective way and a both short-term and long-term. And we aren't, as Eric knows, I'm not afraid to get outside the box or ride the guardrails, so to speak. It's just, there's no wrong. There's not a bad question in the way we are. We love involvement from you guys and the sheriff's office, and there's no stupid question, because somebody may have a really good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bailey.
A couple questions I got. Explain to us a little bit about your own time, on-scene time, as far as your team, how long they be there, visits they make, and that kind of role that you'll play.
Could you say that again?
As far as your own site time.
On-site time?
Yes.
During construction or during design or both?
Both.
Both? Okay. Well, during design, we'll match a meeting cadence that you or Eric sets up or Jalen sets up, and it's usually every 2 weeks. During some parts of the project, it's more than that, and we set up a series of meetings. They can be, a lot of this depends on the client preference. They can be in person. Some of them we insist they're in person. Some of them can be, remote if everybody's coming from different locations. Everybody has a day job, and we realize that. So if we can, make it easier, we'll do it online. If everybody wants to come, we'll come here. And during construction, again, Eric really sets the tone for that and how often we meet, but it's at least once a month, sometimes twice a month.
So your on-site visits in at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, to where you have a representative from your team that's on-site actually looking and watching and checking on stuff.
Yeah, if that's what you want. I mean, we have had jobs where we have on-site representative there every day. But again, it's money. You're already paying your program manager. I'm not sure exactly what's in your scope, Eric, but we're flexible. We can provide anything from, we won't do less than once a month because it gets everybody in trouble. We have learned the hard way that you can't, you still expect us to help you see what's wrong. If we're here once a month or less, it doesn't work because we can't do our job. We will not do that. So,
Let me have a question for
Sure,
Stacy, I
sure, you
guess.
got time.
Is it feasible for me to ask Mr. Eric, is once a month going to be something they can work with? Is that something I can ask? Yeah.
We can ask, I guess we need to ask, we can ask him that later.
Okay, that'll be fine. All right. And just say you had a situation where there was unexpected come up, how fast can you have a team member on? I guess I'm looking for how close are you to this project? Where's the closest representative from your team that could be on site if it had to be?
Most of us are in Atlanta. We're Alpharetta, actually, so today it took an hour to get here.
Okay. And I know earlier you made mention that you had done some projects, Mr. Eric. Is a lot of those projects, or how many of those projects, have they been county facilities our size? And if so, how's those projects went?
Yeah, Paulding County, Cobb County, Haralson County, I can't remember.
Oh,
At least 3 that I can remember offhand.
Numerous projects and everything's went well.
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks.
Y'all covered the project schedule pretty well for me. That's one of my concerns, is that we, stick to a good timeline and let the people see this thing come out of the ground in a timely manner. Y'all are pretty tentative about y'all's timeline. There's no hiccups. I know y'all said you were going to start the planning in April.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason it's not middle of March? To me, it's like the sooner the better, just snap.
We can start as soon as you let us.
We have Stacy Blackman with all the attorney paperwork, so.
We're assuming
In fairness to them, we have Stacy. She's
Yeah.
going to make sure it's that big.
We have to negotiate fees and get a contract, and you all have to come back and meet together, approve it, but yeah, we're ready to start, basically. And we would start with the programming document we did, and, build on that.
That's all.
Did you have questions?
Well, they pretty much covered it. How often do you run into cost overruns on these projects?
So, since COVID, the answer is probably on every job. So, what we have learned, though, is this is why we try and emphasize the early decision-making and having the CM on board early and part of the process. And that CM has got to have really good pre-construction services to be able to do cost estimating and a lot of detention experience, because we're relying on each other. We're relying on everybody. They know way more about numbers than I do. That's why we want them part of the team. Eric and his team have tons of experience in terms of, what has worked, what doesn't work, what we've done before. I mean, we all bring that to the table. And so the trick we have found is we'll develop a shopping list. And that way, if for some reason all of a sudden the electrical, everybody knows, all the electrical components of buildings lately have gone crazy. And concrete has gone crazy. And we're hoping, we're through most of that. But if it does, we want to have a strategy to not have to come back for more money or have an unfinished building. So we'll have a list of things that, maybe you can live without. And it's not really, we'll come up with ideas, but it's really your list. I mean, you're part of this. It's not like we're going to tell you do this, 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 and this. That's not us.
Okay, so I guess where I'm going with this is we'll hear about it sooner rather than later?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's where I'm going.
We don't like surprises either. You can't react to them then.
I'm sorry?
You can't react to it if it happens, if it's too late. If we find out early, then, maybe we can do something about it. We can redesign it, we can fix it, we can, do something different.
And Danny kind of covered, he touched on this, but we've already got a jail. We already have a jail on site.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're integrating office space, a women's jail, and mental health facility into an existing jail. Have you done something similar to this?
We've done a number of additions and renovations. Probably the most recent relevant one is we did the women's prison for the state of Georgia, and that was a combination of renovating the existing housing unit, adding vocational and women's appropriate programs, because it used to be a men's facility, and we did it all in a crazy tight schedule with multiple phases, multiple packages, and everybody was happy at the end. We all worked together, everybody communicated clearly, we had weekly phone calls, and, we may recommend that, during the really, really busy design part, we'll probably have weekly phone calls.
Thank you.
So I guess my question kind of piggybacks off a lot of Commissioner Chance's and Commissioner Fuller's. So E&O, I have learned that the county's contingency isn't always the county's opportunity to change things. That sometimes the architect or the construction company has E&O, and then the county has to pay for it. Of your last two projects, I suppose, what was your E&O, or how do you handle the mistakes that you find that you made?
So in terms of numbers, I would probably have to look it up and tell you. But basically, the gist of this is, I'll stand up here and tell you, we do the best job we can do, and we think we're really good at it. But we're not perfect. Nobody in this room is perfect, right? So everybody's going to do something wrong. So what your contract says is what we will follow. And if it says that there are no change orders for E&O, then that's what it says. Is there more risk for us? Yes. But that's our goal anyway. That is always our goal. But, some things like, for instance, if we go down the road and somebody says, well, the locks are a good example. We're good with having all these standard locks. They fit in the budget, they're this, that, and the other. And then we all say later, nope, we're going to change them. Then that's going to take work and time, and, we would expect to get compensated for it. But, if it's like my example of redoing all the drawings to get all the toilet accessories straight and all of that, that's our problem.
Chairman, I got one follow-up question. Expanding a little bit on the overruns and budget. So with the amount that we've set aside in the sheriff and his team's wish list, do you see a problem meeting that budget?
So the $60 million that's in there? No, I think that's fine.
Okay. I just want to make sure, we was talking about overruns and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Have you seen an issue up front already?
Because we were part of the budgeting process, when we did the study, we were part and parcel of all of it. The biggest variable right now is probably really the scope of the renovation, because we didn't really address that. But again, that gives you part of your shopping list. If you really, really want to do that renovation, then maybe you pick a less expensive glass elsewhere. I mean, some of this stuff adds up in a hurry. Detention items are expensive. HVAC systems are expensive.
Can I follow up with one thing?
Sure.
You said you guys would be on site on a monthly basis. This is what you normally do, but you would be on site more if we wanted you to do that. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We submitted a fee proposal. It has a certain number of visits in it. Offhand, I don't remember. If you want more or less of that, we're happy to do more or less and negotiate. It is, again, it's partly sitting down jointly with Eric and you and the sheriff's office and what you really want, right? I was in a vacuum. We don't do very many things in a vacuum. We'd rather do it jointly.
I guess, going along with him, it's I guess what I want, and I won't speak for the board, is I want you to be on site enough. If you have an issue, you catch it before it gets to a money situation, and then you have to come back before us. That's really what I want. And
I agree. We agree with that.
Once a month, that's up to y'all, I guess, and that's where I kind of lean on y'all to have that expertise. But at the end of the day, by you or one of your team members not being there, then we have an issue that we don't catch ahead of time or your team doesn't catch. I don't want to have to come back for us and ask for money to fix that. That's just kind of laying it out as simple as I know how, I guess.
I agree. But if it's a contractor error and it's not right, he should fix it at his
Well, I
cost.
agree. That's kind of where y'all gonna have to work together and y'all figure it out. I just don't have to come back and find more money.
I agree.
Something that wasn't our responsibility.
We agree with that totally. This is why we won't do any less than once a month.
Okay.
Just to give some clarity to the errors and omissions questions and the contingency, there's really, I guess, three different ways you can look at this. You've got true errors and omissions where you've technically made a professional error. Then you've got unforeseen circumstances that technically no professional, whether it be the general contractor or the owner's rep or the architect, could technically foresee those issues. And then you've got either contingency that you work out of to fix that, or you get the great value in one of the products that you can live with to be able to free up the money to handle that situation. And then you've got an owner's contingency that you may want to pull from, and when you go into a room and say, I didn't realize we really needed 2 sinks in here, we only had 1 that we originally scoped out, so as the owners, we want to add that in. So just giving a little bit of clarity, would you say that's a fair analysis? You really got 3 different components of when you're working off contingencies or errors or unforeseen.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's correct. And we recommend you have enough money in each one of those pots. And Eric and Jalen are pretty good at helping you set that up.
You know you're dealing with a bunch of tightwads, did you?
It's okay. That's all right. I would be too if I sat in your position, frankly.
We have a few minutes left. I believe we might have cut your program just a little bit short because of the original time presented. So if there's a few more things you'd like to share with us, just to...
Yeah, I'm going to... The last bit of this is really part of the closing anyway, so if you would go back to the... Yeah. I want to see that. So... this addresses the comment about phasing and being an existing project, this existing site. This is your existing building. Next slide. So the ones in red are the ones that have to get demolished or relocated, the maintenance building in the back and the sheriff's office in the front, because we have to make enough room for the contractor to work. Next slide. Then we're going to build the new housing tower in the back. It's really not a tower. The new housing building in the back, that's the pink one. And then next, so that we can demolish the women's unit, because you're going to have to move the women over to the new housing before you can demolish that. So we'll demolish the building in red. And then from there, it frees up being able to construct and renovate the rest of it, including, you know, decorating, painting, putting a little bit of lipstick on that existing tower. Go on. And that's really what the, you know, an image of what it could look like. And so what I really wanted to tell you in addition to this is that we really understand your project is that you know, Nelson really takes seriously trying to provide you the most value we can through design, which is why when you say you're a tightwad, that really doesn't bother me, because it kind of matches our philosophy. Is you know, we aren't in it for awards and, you know, Taj Mahal. We realize it's a jail, it's a sheriff's office. It needs to be reflective of the community. It's got to be a nice place to work. It's, you know, the sheriff's office right now has a very old building that could use some work. And so we're just excited to be able to have an opportunity to do this. We think we're the best team to do this because we're good at doing this quickly. We have experience with CM at Risk and with Eric. We did the study, and we think we're the best team for you to hire. And with that, I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and cut the recording at this point. And commissioners, it is